Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Rob Hernandez, along with Joshua Sean.
Good evening.
How you doing, Josh?
I've been doing better before. Had a little lip injury playing with my son, and his head popped me in the chin, and my teeth took a chunk out of my lip. So, other than the stitches and excruciating pain, I'm having a great evening. Thank you for asking.
No, you know what really happened? Come on, you got to tell everybody the truth.
What is the truth, Rob? And God, it hurts to laugh, so don't do that.
I was gonna do something, but I will. I will ease your pain. I won't say anything.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not prepared for this. I didn't get the liner notes on this.
You know what happened.
I do know what happened.
You're bending over, and you were.
The minute I walked in, I was holding my balls. Holding my balls. I felt balls.
Pain. It hurts.
I was holding my balls.
No.
Holding my.
So he was holding his balls, and he got popped in the lip.
I'm going to pop that stitch. Please don't do this. Please. My mouth hurts so bad. And they didn't even, there's no pain medication. It's just Advil. And Advil does nothing. So, oh my gosh.
All right. I just had to lighten the mood a little bit.
Oh,
So.
I owe you one. Oh, man. I got to think serious thoughts.
Yeah. So anyway, we have a special guest here tonight. So we're going to be talking a little bit about ITC, and probably a little bit more about direct radio voice. So it's going to be a good show. Now, just straight up, right off the top, I'm going to say if anybody comes in, they start starting any trolling or anything in the chats, or if we start getting negative comments, things like that, I will start banning people. I actually have moderator doing all that, so it's actually from Live Paranormal, so they will start blocking people.
We have security.
We have security.
Oh my gosh, that's how big we are. We have security, Rob. Oh my gosh.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest. Do you want to introduce our guest, Josh?
I'm in pain from what you just did, so why don't you go ahead and do that? Thanks for doing that.
So we have an ITC researcher, Ron Yakovetti. So Ron's a great guy. Love a lot of the work that he's doing. So without further ado, we'll bring him on and we'll have a little chat with him, see what he's working on, see maybe hear some of his evidence, things like that. So it's going to be a fun show. So let me bring on Ron.
Hey,
Ron, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was looking forward to this. I love working with you guys. I love what you guys are doing. Also, it was an honor for me to be asked to be here. Yeah, I'm excited. This is very cool. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, it's going to be a fun topic. So, Ron, what you been working on these days?
Well, as you mentioned before, right after the musical balls jingle, which, by the way, if I get an MP3 of that, I have a lot of uses I can think of already for that clip. That was fantastic.
I have
the best evidence I've heard.
I actually made that was a ringtone that I made per request from some of my Saturday show viewers. That's actually a clip of my friend Eric Van Leer.
Awesome.
Yeah, so he's actually an actor. So if you guys want to see this, it's called Unusual Noises on YouTube. So there's video clips with it also, with some of the episodes that he's or some shows that he starred in, and yeah, there's just clips, various clips. It's kind of funny.
I have to interject. You knew I had stitches put in, and you decided to do this tonight. I owe you one. I mean, I'm going to calculate some way to get you back, because this
you know me
from laughing. Yes, this already hurts. So thank you so much.
I got to, I got to stir something up and make people
I
laugh.
know. I'll get you
Either
back.
even if at somebody else's expense.
Yeah, I'll get you back.
That's funny.
All right.
That is funny. Yeah, you mentioned I went for a number of years doing. I got hooked kind of on the direct radio voice bug. I love anything ITC. I'll try everything. I don't feel like I'm entitled to a vocal opinion about something if I haven't touched it. It's like it's as rudimentary as when, Josh, if you have kids. I don't know about. I'm sure if you have children, but you tell your kids eat the peas, and they go, "Oh, they're horrible." Have you tried them? No. Well, you try it first, and then have an opinion. So I look at it the same way. And if it's an app, some apps are $5, $15, whatever. Research costs money. So if I have to spend a couple bucks and then I go, all right, this thing is great, or sometimes it works, or I don't like it, then I don't have to use it anymore. Direct radio became my focus a few years back. I still use the ghost boxes of different varieties. I love it. I've gotten results on apps and all different things, but you go where your passion takes you, I guess, and that's where your work, and we were talking about this off air, where your dedication is going to get an infinite amount of fuel to keep you going, because certain things on a research side of it can be a grind. It's not the same instant gratification that we've come to know from watching evidentiary stuff on television. So in the last Saturday, I was blessed and honored to have been asked to host an ITC exhibit. I did an interactive exhibit at the New Jersey Para-Unity Expo in Woodbridge, New Jersey. It's a fantastic event. I was asked in 2019. We know what happened in 2020. They just finally got the 7th annual one off. It was really well done. And I wanted to do something different than just a walkthrough and look at some of the stuff that I have spent all my money on instead of clothes I could perhaps use. And I wanted to do interactive stuff. So I had a big 7-foot screen on, and I did direct radio sessions. And I told people, put your phone down, put your recorder, whatever you got. See if you get some evidence. Go home. Half your adventure today for your $20 ticket. You still have stuff to do when you get home. So that was a really fun day. And then this coming Friday, I'm doing a lecture presentation at the UFO and Paranormal Museum in Pine Bush, New York, which I'm also looking forward to. These are any opportunity to me is awesome. I'm extremely grateful, not just because we were locked up for a long time, not doing anything, but my attitude in life, and especially in this field, is that nobody owes you anything. So You guys asked me to be on the show tonight, and I respect and admire you both highly. You're both brilliant at what you do. I was grateful. This is an opportunity. So that's kind of what I've been up to, and that's kind of how I approach when I have chances to do anything.
No, and that's
feelings mutual.
Yeah, no, exactly. And thank you. That's an honor for those kind of words. But yeah, it's like with anything else. You just have to try it, play with it, and see what works. I used to be, just with me having a huge skeptic background, with starting to try, because I was like, yeah, that's just a broken radio. Yeah, that's just an app with reverse banks. That's another app just spitting out audio. This app has a recorder, so it has to. Sorry, I got mosquitoes attacking me. So this app has a reverse. I mean, it's got snippets of audio with a mic that's it's running off of your cell phone and using that mic that's built in. So that's just capturing things, bringing them in. But the more I played with it, especially with, I'm talking about the Echo Vox, I started getting words coming through with different types of dialects, different types of accents, whether it's a little boy, a little girl, an old woman, an old man, a male, a female, doesn't really matter. If you listen to the raw audio banks, that when you put them back together, because I ripped it apart, put it back together, and it's just a distorted, bad recording of poems from Edgar Allan Poe, and they're all male. So how are you getting females? How are you getting kids? How are you getting all these different things that are coming through when it's only, chopped up banks that they're not even a millisecond long. Each clip is just like, just really quick clips, and there's no audio coming through. There's nothing coming through.
I
So
love that
yeah,
that you dissect it apart. Analytical and critical thinking is part of what we need to have and what we do. Or you're kind of just like, it's like firing arrows at a bullseye with a blindfold. You hope you hit something. You gotta assess the terrain you're on, and then the ground you hope to step to, whatever direction that might be. And it's also really, really cool too, because if historically in European ITC, especially direct radio, and just in general, like if you look at the Harsh Fishback couple in Luxembourg, if you look at Marcello Bacci with a vacuum tube radio in Grosseto, Italy, they got staggering stuff on unnetworked computers, fax machines, phone lines that were landlines with no logged calls going in or out. So if you believe that spirits or whatever interdimensional, whatever we're communicating with, can manipulate or tap into somehow electronics, electromagnetic waves, etc., then anything that qualifies can work. So, they go, oh, well, the app, it doesn't work. It doesn't always work. Guess what? I pay Verizon every month, and you know what? They don't always work.
exactly. Well said. Well, here's the funny thing. Now we're talking about direct radio voice, or DRV. So this is coming through. So what we're talking about is when we're trying to communicate with something, or when we're experimenting or doing research. Sometimes we'll dial into a radio station that is complete dead air. We know for a fact,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the frequencies, or the the broadcast frequencies, let's say in LA area, you'll see it start off at, and it will have what the frequencies are, the area of the frequency that's broadcasted in that particular area. So if you find one like, let's say, 87.1, you look at it, the next closest one to it might be 91.7. So you're
Yep.
like, okay, that's way out of the range. So I'm going to dial into that, and I'm going to start experimenting, see if I get any communication coming through.
Yeah,
Now,
that's what I love about direct radio. In Europe, they would do that because they'll never say in Europe. Like I interviewed Dr. Annabella Cordoso Saturday at the Paranormal Expo in New Jersey, and they'll never say that ghost boxes or sweeping radios like a Frank's box. They'll never say they don't work, because they can and they do. But when you're doing research and you have engineers and physicists and different people on both sides of I think this is real, I don't think it is, going back and forth, and they're looking for funding, and they're trying to further the research as far as getting a research center, and they're putting theories out, and they don't want any low-hanging fruit or fodder for the people who don't think there's any legitimacy to it. So for them, if you have vocals in the process and your process is to find vocals, you've already instilled in the process something that might trick you. Then they'll throw the pareidolia thing out. And so again, it's not that they don't work, or there's ways to govern and discern whether you're getting something, but that's why and there's really the ITC people like Dr. Ana Cardoso, they really were born out of EVP research, and they even approached the process like an EVP sitting. That's the only reason I don't like that. When we do our sittings here, Lourdes and I did 2 years without missing 1 week, at least one session, if not more, for about an hour or two. And we would dial into, we tried medium wave and stuff at first, but then we ended up on long wave, and there's nobody. And I got that big boom box with the big antenna, and I've used the dipole antenna and the monopole, and I can't get anything on the 200 kilohertz range whatsoever. So it's literally just the white noise. It is barren of vocals. And sometimes I can't understand even what's coming through, but when I speak, the cadence of speech is what comes back to me as if in a response. And then, people go, well, if it works, so how come you can't always understand it? How come you can't make again, I'm going to go back to my cell phone. Have you ever talked to somebody like they're walking through a mall or something, and half of what they say sounds like the teacher from Charlie Brown? You can't. If it's another realm or dimension, the fact that there's any connection at all with temporal synchronization, one receiver, one transmitter, not in the same plane, that's phenomenal to even be attempting that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's the whole fun of it. Sometimes we're sitting here, we just talked about this. Sometimes we sit here for, me literally for a couple of hours at least. I mean, sometimes 3 hours just listening to dead air and just playing around. Then all of a sudden you just, like with me here, I get like an overwhelming. I mean, just the whole environment changes, and
Mhm.
people have actually witnessed it on my Saturday show. And then all of a sudden they said, "Holy crap, what just changed?" They just said you totally saw the energy change. Then all of a sudden we started hearing disembodied voices. Where were they coming from? And it was like, and I'm looking around. I'm like, okay, is there neighbors outside? But it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you look at my location where I live, houses are so far apart. And I mean, even if the neighbors across the street were talking, I wouldn't be able to hear them because they're probably a good 70 yards away. So,
Right.
um,
Yeah, you look at the decibel level on your waveform and you compare that distance of the person. Even if there's no theory, Doppler effect, there's nothing that's going to explain somebody who's outside, 2 houses away, showing up on your recorder at the decibel level you're getting them.
right. And
Right.
and
It's
people are
not.
like, it sounds like it's coming in the same room as you. And I said, exactly.
Yeah.
And there's nobody awake. There's, the TV's not on. How would it change? Like in the drop of a hat. Yeah, it's crazy. So, and like I was telling Josh the other day, I was playing around with my experiment, and I was getting what it sounded like. I was getting like call signs. I'm like, what the hell? Where is this coming from?
Wow.
And but but just the way that it sound, and it didn't sound. I mean, yeah, it was call signs, but just everything that was being said, I was like, wait a minute. It almost sounded like it was. And I told Josh, and I said, this kind of sounds crazy, but it was almost like it was coming from astronauts.
It, it reminded excuse me, it reminded me a little bit of, I don't want to say time travel, but it seemed like the voices were from the past
Yeah.
in terms of the cadence and the tone. It just
Interesting.
intuitively felt like it was from the 30s or the 40s or the 50s, and you were picking that up. That was my initial reaction to it, although I can't support that with any evidence.
Of course, but that's an astute observation, and that comes from experience for the folks who are hearing this stuff for the first time. That's an astute observation. And yeah, we don't know if it's interdimensional. We don't know if it's extraterrestrial. We don't know if it's a higher vibrational plane where maybe they're touching at different points, and the dimensions or world are kind of undulating, and there's a connection temporarily in certain areas. We don't know. Time slip. You could be talking to yourself from another time period. It could be consciousness that is of a discarnate or used to be meat suit person, or we really don't know. And you look at those characteristics to try to categorize it somehow.
Right. And that's what's interesting, is because there is no one set way or one perspective to look at this. I mean, we have to constantly look at this with a fresh pair of eyes every single time and say, what could this be? How many, and then with statistical modeling, kind of see if we can at least develop some type of pattern to say, well, these are still theories, but what seems to be showing up the most? And then that can help kind of lead you to understand how this phenomena is happening, when it's happening at particular times. I mean, it was the first time, I think, with Rob's research, I had heard what sounded like to me something that was 60, 70 years ago, compared to maybe something like you said that was interdimensional, extraterrestrial, another dimension, something like that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the detail you guys put into that type of research is, again, for people watching, is so important, because technically speaking, right, if you look at this whole getting this accepted into science and having science hop on board and sing kumbaya and go, all right, you've got us, it's real. That whole concept, if you think about it, in science, there are people on both sides that are in favor of and who don't buy into this stuff. But in science, you've got theory, anecdote. These things, a lot of times with how they're done, could be fluid, like definitions can be. However, in paranormal research, if you look at the characteristics of EVPs, of radio voices, or what radiophony, when you're using radios to communicate, and you look at the characteristics of the evidence, teams and researchers in any country, in any city, in any team, any gender, any background, the characteristics of the data are similar. And when you have consistency of data, you have stability of data. When you have stability of data, you have more reliability of data. So, in all honesty, we're leading the field ahead of science, in my opinion, based on the collectiveness of that kind of data. My opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
because
Well stated.
yeah, because I mean, I don't see very many people putting the time and effort into this much research. Like there's a handful of people that I can name. But the funny thing is I'm seeing more people in the UK doing it than here in the US. Here in the US, I literally maybe can count on one hand on how many people. And I'm sorry if there's people out there, more people out there that are doing it. But me personally, that I know, there's about 5 or 6 people that I know of.
There are people in private doing it.
Well, I'm sure that they are,
There
but
are
that's
people.
what I'm saying, and well, what I see, I can count on, 2 hands basically. But as far as I know, and the number of people that I know that are doing research in the UK, it's a huge number. So, and that's just, I don't know if it's because of the instant gratification that everybody's looking for and they don't want to put in the time and effort to do it, opposed to doing, the true research that it does take a lot of time. Yes, I know that, you know time is of the essence. A lot of people don't have time because of their lifestyle, what have
Right.
you. But I just wish that a lot more people, and if there are people that want to experiment, just, and they want to be part of a group, let me know, let Josh know, let Ron know. I'm trying to put something together, where we can all do like a community project, a community forum, what have you, and we can all share evidence and we can all work together, because basically we're all working towards a common goal. Um, and that's what I'm
Definitely.
trying to do. So one of my other side projects that I'm working with Josh on, we're going to be putting together a community forum where people can go and share evidence and do some research and maybe even do a Zoom meeting, and we all have, do a live experiment together. I think something like that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's so funny because people sometimes don't realize how much science or tie into scientific stuff. That's groupthink. That's group consciousness. That's Rupert Sheldrake, who was one of the SPR members. We sat in on the skull experiment when they allowed that to happen eventually. He called it morphogenic fields, that group collective consciousness. So if we're dealing in some way with consciousness, that's part of our side of the equation for that. And that's very much, I think, part of what facilitates or has something to do with when we're able to connect. I think that the devices also have a role, but I don't think the device itself. And that's what I love about how you guys do stuff. And Josh and I have had conversations offline a couple of times about this: the intent, the measurable energy of what intent is, and your genuineness to do it. Because I think that those things factor in. Dr. Cardoza had a session. She runs 3 radios when she does direct radio, 3 different long wave or short wave bands, no broadcast, barren of radio emission. She got a microphone by them, got another microphone by her. They both go into a mixing board. Then she uses a cassette recorder to record the whole thing. And she asked one time that she's had a vocal response clear come out of all 3 radios, finishing the sentence one radio at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And one time she asked them, she goes, "Why do you always come through this specific radio?" And they said, "Because that's your favorite."
Right. There you go. Right.
We had similar experience. Josh and I had 2 radios coming, and then him and I were talking. They were finishing our sentences. Then they started communicating to each other. And then it was basically, we were like, what the hell's going on? What are we witnessing? And it was crazy. And with like what you were saying on our Saturday show, the intent is always there. We're always at the same exact time. There's a group of people, of 30 people at least, every single Saturday, and doing these sessions. And some of the responses that come through is just crazy. And then we start getting disembodied voices coming through when we're just sitting here talking, and then we're hearing another voice come through, or they're mimicking my voice because I'm not talking, but yet my voice is still coming through and
That's
saying
awesome.
different things. So we're like, what the hell's going on? And it's kind of freaky, but it's kind of cool.
That's very
If I
cool.
can interject really quick, I want to back up. We've had a few questions from our friends in the audience about what is ITC. I think we're mentioning it a lot. And in short, ITC is instrumental transcommunication, and that is using an instrument which which manipulates the properties of our physics through science, through our dimension, to engage in communication with another dimension, our loved ones, our subconscious, time travel, whatever it may be. We don't know what it is, but essentially it's using an instrument to facilitate interdimensional communication, extraterrestrial communication. Ron, you could probably paraphrase our better.
No, that's spot on. Tim Woolworth has a brilliant explanation for it, the use of a third party instrument, which I agree with. The term itself was coined, I think it was 94 or 98. I'm trying to remember now. It was coined by Ernst Sinkowski, physics professor, absolutely, in Europe, Transcommunication Instrumental, TCI. And he did it to delineate between when, like, a recorder and EVP research, which a lot of European ITC people started doing EVP, to delineate the difference also between whether the device captures vocals or facilitates it like a medium, to get autonomous vocals, which is independently acting. We're not controlling vocals,
right,
to capture them. So that was something he also wanted to, set a category of, and not just have it be EVP, so that the device is also the medium, so to speak, to facilitate the communication.
Right.
And doing all the research that I have been doing, I think it's more of a medium for them to use as to speak out. But it can even be a recorder. It doesn't matter what the instrument is. I think that's what that's what's helping facilitate that manifestation of voice. And I think same thing with, like, this environment. It's like this environment that I have here. And Lloyd Auerbach said the same thing. He said, Rob, it's like you're in a as controlled environment as you can get, right? I know what's around. I make sure that there's nothing else coming into the environment. I know that there's no interference coming into the environment. I hardly even get radio coming into this place. Josh can contest to that.
Right.
So for things to come through, where a frequency or a frequency band isn't, we know that there's nothing coming through, but yet we're getting radio voices coming through. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the things I like about the reverence that should be paid, and the familiarity with the historical side. Marcello Bacci went through more hoops with proving and vetting his process than anybody who, what do we have to deal with? An angry person on Facebook somewhere in Dubuque. He had an Italian group called Il Laboratorio investigate him for 3 years. They operated his vacuum tube radio with the thing open so they could see it. They put him in an RF shielded room. They took the vacuum tubes out one at a time. He still got vocals. That's in arguing the legitimacy of what we do. If you leave that out, that's like leaving the murder weapon out of a murder trial when you're trying to prove it. It's like that's where there's smoke, there's a gun kind of a thing. So
yeah. No, exactly. So Lisa, you were talking about if you do a live where. Actually, we do live sessions every Saturday night here on the same wherever you're tuned in. So if you're on Facebook, on the same Facebook page, we do live sessions every Saturday night. I know it's a little late. It's at 11:45 p.m.
A little late.
11:45 p.m. Pacific and 2:45 p.m. Or a.m. Eastern.
Right. That's a lot late. It's especially for the East Coast. It's dead smack. It's right in the middle of the morning.
There was a reason behind it, because we were doing sessions at 3 a.m., which is basically called the witching hour. So that's why we started doing that, to see if we can gather more evidence during the witching hour than any other time. And that's how it started.
It's good. You have, like you said before, you have control over your environment later. You have less outside contamination, if there's any, to begin with. And like for us, we're using long wave. So if we're using a long wave radio pull, the ionosphere that long wave frequencies bounce off of is a little bit less active during the nighttime rather, because of
Mhm.
those particles get scattered by the sunlight energy during the day. So it doesn't mean you can't get them during the day, but that was originally for the same principle, just to have a one less thing to say, all right, well, maybe this, and a little bit more control, if there's any.
Yeah. No, exactly. You always try to find the best time to do different research. I want to pick up one of the radios that you're using. Um, and I did look at different antennas. I mean, right now, my environment where I'm at right now would have been perfect, but I am going to be moving. So that's going to be a little bit harder because, like I said, I'm moving closer to where Josh is. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's going to be the frequencies are going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be more towards the city.
You're going to get AM now, so I'm going to expect a tuned radio frequency AM circuit pretty soon.
Yeah, so where I'm at, I get 0 AM signal.
No, we get AM. My AM radios work here, so no more. Oh, Josh, I can only make an FM radio. No, now you're making an AM.
Well, Josh knows because he used to live down the street, so
Right.
he knows that AM's non-existent.
Yes, I
Here.
used to live a block from you, and there was no AM signal. Nothing.
Yeah,
Nowhere.
and here FM we might get 3 stations.
Right. No,
So.
you get everything out here, so it's time to build some AM radios.
Yeah, same here too. I'm literally right across the river from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, New York City.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. I got a map.
Which is why I use long wave when I do direct radio, because there's nobody on it. They're on certain shortwave bands, depending on how far up the dial you go. I can get broadcast on certain bands because of where I am, but there's nobody. I've checked. I gotten one long wave channel that I forget where it was. It was overseas, and it wasn't really clear, and it was further up, closer to the top of long wave, and I'm at the bottom end, closer to VLF.
Right.
See, I love VLF. That's where I was playing with a lot with VLF. And I was getting so many responses. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's pure.
Yeah, it was. Josh heard a lot of it.
Yeah. You didn't stay with that for long, I think, because some of the other experiments you started going off in a different direction. But yeah, that was really impressive.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of responses. It was very successful. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to move on to something different. So
there is a question from uncelebrity Kevin Hart. Should we take a question?
Sure.
And by the way, Kevin, I saw your comment earlier, and you used my name as a verb that you didn't. Josh, your iPad just crashed. So I'm watching you, uncelebrity Kevin Hart.
That's a good question.
He says, does Ron have to train them to use the long range?
No. So it's funny because in communication with spirit, even on investigations, sometimes if you do paranormal ghost hunt stuff and people go, we're not here to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you. And I always think, how could we hurt them? Like, it's almost presumptuous to say, I can't see you or feel you necessarily, but I'm going to choke you out if you piss me off. Like, it's difficult. Here's the thing. And I use this as an example when I lecture about the scientific thing of having to prove something in threes. I think that model for recreating something under the same conditions in a lab, I don't think it's a sound method for what we do. Right. Because if you're trying to communicate with anybody in life, in the afterlife, whatever, inherent in that is intelligence, right? You don't talk to your couch and look for a response, because you don't expect something from an inanimate object. So if you're communicating, then there's an expectation of the possibility of dialogue. So if you have an intelligence, you also have what's free will, and you have choice. So I may talk to somebody on a train, and if they don't want to talk to me, they're not talking. So one sobering reality to what we do is that we don't have control over more than maybe 50% of the equation. We don't. So if you look at the scientific threes thing, right? If I pick up my electronic device, which allows me to use electromagnetic energy to connect to somebody not in my physical space, like let's say my dad, and I call him 10 times and he picks up once, by that standard of recreating it in the same environment 3 times in a row, my father doesn't exist because I have a 90% fail rate and I didn't do it 3 times in a row. Mm-hmm. But again, if it's another realm or dimension, sometimes Verizon can't connect me to my father 45 minutes away. So if you're talking about something that's not line of sight communication, then how could you really use that as a barometer for even for the efficacy of the device? It's really not. You don't have control over a part of it. Maybe they can't come through. Maybe they're trying. Maybe they don't want to. I mean, who knows? So I mean, that to me puts the threes thing out the window, and then bringing it into a lab thing too is sociology, astronomy. There's a bunch of sciences that are field based and respected. Nobody in astronomy is bringing planets into a lab to examine them. They're okay if they're out in the field doing it. So
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine lassoing Mars and bringing it on in for examination? Woo!
It's hard
tough.
It's hard to grasp what we do. This is what we do is what's the word? It's technomancy, right? We're doing some kind of through our equipment. It's something that has like a magical appeal is either happening to our equipment or through our equipment. And that's, what is it? Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology is almost indistinguishable from magic. And what we're doing is not pedestrian, right? It's really extraordinary if we're able to do it.
Exactly.
I've used your example, Ron, on the show several times, and I've actually credited you, Robbie, for the example. But you call your father 10 times, he only picks up once. That again, the 90% fail rate, and the idea of free will. And I am absolutely 100% on board with that, because there is that element of free will, and like you said, we can only control 50% of the equation at best. I mean, really, and has it really ever been truly full 50% on our end? I mean, how much of that is missing most of the time? And I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm speculating.
Yeah, as we all are.
I absolutely agree with you with that.
Yeah, and that's where. No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that to me is just. So I have a background. I did stand-up comedy for a long time, and comedians look for hypocrisy. They look for inconsistency and in pursuit of humor. But it's hard to shut that off. And so in doing this kind of stuff, I find and gravitate towards those things. And people would say, well, if that thing talks to ghosts, just turn it on. And I can't do that with my phone. I pay every month to be able to do that with my phone, and it can't always do it. Sometimes if there's clouds in the sky, you can't get satellite television. I mean, so technology, as impressive as it is, has not conquered all.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you have to factor in things like that, especially if you're dialoguing, then there's intelligence involved, and with intelligence, there's free will.
Right.
No, exactly.
Excellent point.
And yeah, and this is, I think, where, because somebody else was asking about, and we were kind of talking about this, kind of like the difference between using just a scanning radio and doing DRV. I mean, what's the difference?
I mean, the main difference is when you're scanning a radio. If you're talking about a sweeping ghost box that actually is getting RF signal, right? Then the concept behind that is in it, right? Was it Stefan Bayan that had EVP Maker before the Frank's box? And the concept is that the allophones, the phonemes, the fragments of sound, which are very minute and don't form anything, are being manipulated or used to form through thought forms or whatever, to form vocals, words, to give tonality and the ability to be heard, or recorded. In direct radio, when you're using just a white noise frequency, you don't have any vocal tonality in the equation whatsoever. And sometimes you can, I mean, we've done what's called heterodyning. We've taken like an ultra high frequency audio, something in a gigahertz range, and taken something in the lower kilohertz range on a long wave, and blended them through a mixing board to take two unique frequencies and create one that is the sum and difference of those two. And then even mixed in a third channel of like a tone generator, like maybe like 200 hertz, or we're playing around with it because that's really shooting in the dark as far as the tone generator goes, and trying to concoct something that might make discernment and in how intelligible it is in the moment at a higher ratio. Because I think a lot of times, and I'm sure you guys get this because you guys have unbelievable evidence I've seen. A a lot of times you're getting stuff, and you're getting stuff, but it's not always discernible what's being said, or you get part of it. That's again, that goes back to the concept of temporal synchronization. You're not in the same realm necessarily, or space even, of what you're trying to communicate with. And it was Hans Otto Koenig who made several devices. He made a UDS device. I know he used a bunch of oscillators. I think he even used UV in his process. He would liken it to, and I love the example of driving on a highway with your window open next to another car, shaking hands with somebody, and then trying to hold that. That's what we're doing. And that's partly why there's brevity to how long sometimes the communications can be. So on one hand, when the tech is so crucial and part of what we do, on the other hand, as much as technology and digital and stuff has moved forward, look at Marcello Bacci with a vacuum tube radio, having real-time talk we're having now, or Annabella Cardoso, which she's gotten. That's phenomenal. So I really try not to be of that mindset where everything we do in our generation is superior to that of our parents or people who came before us. I think the brass ring, or the close thing to that, I really think is behind us, and I think it's in Europe.
Yeah, and that's what I was touching. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier. Is all of the techniques and things like that. I mean, like with me, all my projects, I'm going backwards. I'm trying to replicate what others left off. I'm trying to figure out what they were working on and see if we can bring that stuff forward. So we have to take, and like with what you said, using two different frequencies, putting it together and throwing in, another frequency. It's just like creating a hodgepodge of frequencies to see if we're going to get communication. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's worked. Certain frequencies work better than others. So it's always like, okay, I'm going to do something. But here's the funny thing is I get these messages, and it says, and it tells me basically how to do it. I know it sounds crazy, but it's, I doing more and more research. I'm not the only one that has experiences.
That's right.
And so I'm just following direction, and they're not, they can't, it's almost like they can't give you the exact formula. They're not allowed to. They can lead you to water and say, okay, there it is, go find it. And then that's it.
So maybe in the afterlife, or wherever they are, maybe they're also not in favor of that everybody gets a trophy for participation concept that we didn't have when we were kids. Somebody won, somebody lost. That's life.
It's life. Yeah.
Get over it, kid.
Right.
That's true. Mark Macy got responses in direct radio from Konstantin Radove. The vocal was voice print matchable, and if people may remember, voice print's like a fingerprint. You can match a voice print not only for what's being said on the spectrograph, but you can match the tonality and everything, the timbre and stuff to the vocal of who you think it is. And Radove gave him advice and told him VLF. So when I got my world band radio, the first one I got and started doing stuff with, that's why I went to long wave, because that's the closest I can get to it until I get a converter. It's because that was, it's in that range or close to it.
Yeah. And anybody that wants to, I mean, I know sometimes world radios are a little pricey. I had one and I sold it. I kick myself every day for selling it. But at that time I just needed the money. But yeah, when you get a world radio, you start working with VLF and you start doing experiments with long range. It's crazy. It's so cool. And also what I found is there's some really good SDRs, so they're software defined radios that you can also use to do long range communication. With the SDR, what that allows you to do is it allows you to tap into any frequency out there that's broadcast. So whether if you want to listen to aircraft, whether you want to listen to submarines I pick up great here because the coast is just over the hill. And there's a lot of UFO sightings just over the hill. So sometimes I'll tap into that just to see if I can pick up anything. So it's kind of cool. But so SDRs, if you do pick up an SDR, do not buy like the cheap $50 ones. They're not that good. Speaking from experience, I mean, you're going to have to spend a little bit more. You're going to spend about $300 for a decent one.
You can
But
get world band radios too on eBay.
eBay.
I got the first one I got was a Grundig Satellite 2400. It's a boombox. I'm like the
That's what I
LL
have.
Cool J of ITC. Walk in with the thing around. But you can get Grundig Yacht Boy 400s PE for $85-$90. The Grundig brand is I really like. You can get. I have a you know what I use sometimes here. I'll show you. I've been doing direct radio with the AI that Keith Clark from Paranormal was had recommended.
Right.
And I would do them running it through a VST software. And the radio I used was this. It's a Texan PL360. It's got AM, FM, medium wave, and shortwave. And then I would put the ferrite antenna in it to increase the pull a little bit. And I've done direct radio with this. And this is a $80, $65 to $85 radio.
Yeah.
Right.
But you always have to remember then the antenna makes a huge difference. Don't skip out on a cheap antenna.
Now
because
let's see.
It does make a difference.
Rob, I'm using the box you made me on 87.1, and you took the antenna out, and I'm having great results with voices in the voices are embedded in the white noise. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob makes some cool stuff. I've seen
no antenna.
Some of the stuff, and you know what? I know that there's in the instant gratification, ghost hunting, TV-driven contingency, that a lot of times people just want all the, as my friend Gary Greener says, all the whiz bang, all the lights and things and stuff. But there's nothing wrong with it looking aesthetically pleasing also. But that's what I like about Rob's stuff. I think he makes stuff that looks good and it works good. And that's for when you're buying something, that's a nice combination.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like what Josh and I say, so the signal to noise ratio is a huge difference. That's where you're going to get clear communication. So there's ways of doing things, and it's not difficult to do. You just have to take the time and figure out the combination that works. Impedance matching is huge, because if you don't impedance match properly, the signal to noise ratio is going to be so bad. A lot of the communication is going to be, you're not going to be able to understand it.
You lose amplitude and frequency. So it literally changes what the operator perceives compared to what's being received.
Yeah.
So you got it.
Oh, did it say cat? No, it said bat. No, I heard, rat.
Right.
So that's where all of that comes through. That is a Grundig radio. If anybody's interested, I'll probably be selling that radio. I just don't have the space for that Grundig. It's a 45 or 450.
A Grundig 450?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I'd seen one of those. I love the Grundig radios. I actually have.
Right.
You can't really see it.
So, yeah.
Your video is actually frozen for me.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't know for everybody else.
Let me see. Is it still frozen?
Yeah. Is it for you, Josh, too, or no? Is he moving on yours?
No, I do see him moving. It's buffering, though.
Okay. Because you're fine, and mine's not buffering, but his has been frozen.
Weird.
That's okay.
Okay.
We get enough Rob anyway. Just you and I run.
It's all right. It's all
fine. It's fine.
It's just out of sight over here. I have I brought it to display it at the expo, but I don't usually bring it out so much just because it's a Saba. It's a German vacuum tube radio.
Right.
Those are nice.
And if you look on eBay, if you're patient, you can find stuff like that. I got this thing for under 400. It was actually less than the Grundig boombox, but the Normandies and the Grundigs and stuff, or the Telefunkens that look like this, like the wood and the pretty like ornate little dials and stuff, and they're like $700, $800, $900 plus like 150 shipping. I got this one for like $320 all in. It's just you have to be patient and look for them, but
right.
Yeah, that's the thing about eBay. You just look every other day, like I do. When you're looking for certain things, look every other day. Be consistent every day, like at the same time. Just go on there, because most auctions are like 3 days anyway. So, or 5 days or whatever.
True.
So yeah, just look at like every other day, same time. and you'll find what you're looking for eventually. Be patient.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Ron, I wanted to
That's
ask
how I
you,
found that Grundig.
right. I remember, in fact, I remember you sent me the link to it.
Yeah.
When you found a few of them actually around that time. In fact, one was $65, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you send me something?
Oh.
Or, yeah, but that went quick. By the time I
Yeah.
contacted him, it was sold. So,
Yeah, those are good radios.
oh, Ron, I wanted to ask you a question really quick. You brought up Marcello Bacci, and I've talked a little bit about direct radio voice on the podcast before, and obviously you're the DRV legend. I was just kind of giving an introduction on it, but this is what I wanted to ask you. Marcello Bacci was receiving communications with the tubes out of the radio. Essentially, I guess and I'm just going to classify very loosely as disembodied voice because the radio was off, the tubes were off, and this communication was coming in. There's a modern researcher, and Rob has experienced this with his equipment, and that's what's been going on. And also, from my knowledge and what I learned, Ron Ricketts, who made the mini box, stated that he went through a process where he felt the radio or the ghost box was a tool to help him build his spirituality, his contact field and communication. And it got to a point where he didn't even have to use his box. He said he was just almost receiving this communication inherently as a medium would naturally. And he said the box kind of trained him to get to this point. It was almost like floaties in a swimming pool, and then you take off the floaties, you're swimming on your own. Have you noticed?
I don't even know him, and I believe that.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to talk with you about, because you've been doing this research for a very long time, highly accredited. Your evidence is incredible, and you're working with direct radio voice. Have you experienced that where you turn off the equipment and not necessarily maybe you hear something in the room as a disembodied voice, but do you feel anything intuitively, or do you feel like maybe you're still receiving communication as you go about your day or anything's happening?
I feel like intuitively sometimes, like I get where I feel like I need to do a session or record. Not anything directly like that yet. And the interesting thing with regard to that story of Marcello Bacci was when the lead investigator, Paolo Presi, took the tubes out, he told Bacci, I'm going to take out your third vacuum tube. If you get voices, I'm taking out the second one. If you get voices, I'm taking out the first one. If you still get voices, I'll eat the tube. And they did it. One, right. 2, 3. And he's like, and then Bacci went, no, don't eat tube. It's glass.
Right. What a kind man.
Yes. But the only thing, and this goes to what you said, and that's why I said I believe it, even though I don't know the gentleman person that you're talking about. I've heard his name before. The only thing they could remove from the equation, and these were scientists and people who, they had him operating the radio with it open. They checked him for trickery, and he never took a dime. I mean, he cleared every possible hurdle someone that was mildly skeptical or more could throw at him. The only thing they could remove from the equation that would stop the vocals was him.
Right. Wow.
So I think in the concept of the morphogenic field and our being somewhat fused with the process, I do think that the device facilitates it. Maybe everybody can get to a point when they can evolve past needing the device, or maybe they can't. But I do think that we are part of that process. I mean, we are, and everything is energy, right? So, I don't doubt that scenario and that gentleman's story that you said. I don't doubt it at all.
And I don't know if it was because he spent so many hours creating, the mini box. Custom PCB boards were made. It was a one-off, very boutique box. And I think through that process and using it in a group setting, he just noticed his abilities strengthening to the point to where before he'd even turn on the box, he was hearing this communication. And hearing it, I don't mean with maybe our ears, but in the sense of just receiving it. And I don't know how else to say that. Or, I don't want to misquote him, but he just felt that his box just kind of helped him learn to swim. And then he was on his own. He didn't even need the box anymore. And I found that fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. It is, and I do believe that's possible. I think that people can do that. It's right. There's so much more to this. Like when people go, "Don't tell me you believe in ghosts," I'm like, "Oh my God, how much time do you have?" It's there's so much to it. And the funny thing is that the technology we use, right? It was developed on scientific principles and theories, and then it does things that contradict those very theories and principles, like spirit photography and radiophony, when you're using it to communicate. So even with the stuff that we think we know, I think there's a borrowed credibility from the fact that we have a reliable belief in what the device is supposed to do. So the gap between what we're trying to do and what we already believe it can do is smaller, because we have that already built-in understanding. But if consciousness and any level of psychical connection and stuff is part of this,
right,
that's what he's done and what Bocce had done, that maybe that's the future, or maybe that's the enlightened level where you want to get.
Right. Interesting. Oh, Ben Jenkins asks, does Ron close his DRV contact?
Ben Jenkins is a good dude. I like Ben Jenkins.
So do I.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ben.
I do.
Hey, Ben.
I do close the sessions. Have I forgotten before? Yes, I've forgotten where my keys are. I've forgotten where my glasses are when they've been right here. That's age. That happens.
Right.
And I have proof of it. But yeah, most of the time I do try to remember to close the sessions and say thank you and this is it and blah blah blah. But excellent question.
Yeah, we all forget to close our sessions.
Right.
I've done it quite a few times.
Or I have the situation where if I'm in the office or the studio doing research and my son wakes up at 1:30 in the morning, has to go to the bathroom, Dad, then it's, got to turn the box off. I mean, my son's calling and they understand. I mean, they get it, it's no problem. I really believe if you're, depending on your intent and just your overall perception on everything, if you've got to turn off the box and you have to run, some people have to hang up the phone, oh, the dog just peed on the carpet, I got to go. How many times do you hang up with your friends or family because something just happened? No one takes it personally. I really don't think there's any danger to that unless you will that, unless that's something that you're already fearing is going to happen and you bring that into the session. I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't make a habit of it, but be respectful, be kind, be humble. But I mean, things happen. Things happen to them. How many times have I called and done a session and they immediately say, call back, we're busy? I mean, I know that's happened to some of my other friends or researchers. They'll say, call. I'm like, do you guys need me to call back? Call back. We're busy. And I'm like, okay, bye. So
the fact that you asked that question shows a really good natured intent, I think, too. I mean, most people in life aren't always that polite necessarily. So,
oh yeah, I'm very, I approach it very, sheepishly, very humbly, very respectful, because really the way I perceive it in so many ways, just my intuition, I feel like they're pulling the strings more than we are. So I've always just, PC, smooth, right down the middle. No problem.
Just to give you an example of like a funny instance, when we would do from the method, the way Bocce would do it, he would run the radio 15, 20 minutes to let it establish the connection bridge and then start a session or sitting. So Lourdes and I were doing it for, like I said, we did sittings every week, once or more, for like 2 years. And when we moved into this house almost a year ago, we had the connection thing getting set up and everything was ready to go and record. So we got up and we walked over that way to go to the kitchen just to get a drink. We're going to sit down. We got to the edge of the kitchen doorway, and very clearly out of the box we heard, "You're leaving?" And we just, wait, what?
Right. And I was going to talk to you about that. And you've obviously mentioned you've done stand-up comedy, but one of the things that recently happened with my cousin and I, we turned on the radio. We were on probably our third session, and immediately a female said, they're back. Great. Very sarcastically. My cousin and I started laughing, and then they started laughing.
That's good.
There was literally just mutual kind of pulling each other's hair because we joke. There's just like a level of comfort there. Now, we've been doing these sessions together for probably 6 years. So there's definitely been a level of comfort, and almost as much of a miracle as it is, there's almost a level of comfort.
Yeah, familiarity.
And so we poke fun at each other, or, when they say, hold on, we'll get him, if she's asking to speak to someone, if that's how it works, there's times I'm, really? How long are we gonna have to wait? And then they'll say something back. I mean, it's happened before where there's been back and forth, and that's probably been the most meaningful communication, is just the comfort level, or the comfort of silence, the comfortable silence. Mm-hmm.
That's extraordinary too. Like and for people listening, what you're describing that you had, that's extraordinary. That is nowhere near pedestrian level entry, basic, like that's not happenstance. That's phenomenal communication. If you're getting stuff like that, that really is.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken years. It's been with the same person for a period of time, similar to Rob's sessions. I mean, we've been doing this for years, hundreds of hours. It's not something I get by myself. I don't get that much communication by myself or with anyone else. It's only with her. Again, her husband passed, or her fiance passed away before they were going to get married, of brain cancer. And so she initiated the will to do these sessions. And again, I couldn't guarantee anything, but that's how that relationship built up. And only with her and only with certain radios, we get that type of communication. It does not happen when I'm by myself.
Yeah,
That's
crazy.
phenomenal. That's phenomenal that you know that. That's attention to detail too.
Yeah, I look forward to doing sessions with her because that's where the most amazing evidence and interaction and communication comes in. By myself, it's literally almost 50% less.
Yeah, I've found when we do, Lourdes and I do the sessions together, we get really good stuff. And then Anthony Simonelli from Seekers Club of the Paranormal in Queens, a lot of times we'll put the phone on a selfie stick and use Google Duo, and he'll remote in on video with headphones on, and we'll put him near where the speaker is so he can hear it. And he's caught things, and he's asked questions and gotten answers before too. So we also tried remoting in just to add another person's energy and another person into the equation. I think I had sent you the one time recently when I said on the session, when I was doing a DRV thing here, I would do something, so I'll be right back. And it said, "Stay here, stupid."
Yes, you did send me that. That was hilarious. Yeah, see, there you go. There's that comfortable humor there. And I don't think that was said maliciously. I think it was said in that humor and that good fun, that's how I perceive it. And if it's different, then wow, I've really, been naive all these years, but I've always perceived it as kind of playful, good fun.
Yeah. It's difficult to know. It's like texting, if you say nice shirt sounds like a compliment unless you go nice shirt. And then
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's subjective, of course.
Somebody wants to know if you have abilities, Ron.
If I have abilities, how much time you have? Cooking? No. Automotive? Not really. I have been told by a lot of different mediums independently that I had a high level of sensitivity, empathic.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I've had an inordinate amount of experiences and stuff. I don't know. I don't like to put that out there like it's on my business card or something, because it's not anything like I'm not going, yes, I can do. I don't really know. That's something I've been told by some folks who are very talented mediums. But I think there's got to be some modicum of it to do what we do.
Right.
And I think it's probably heightened because I literally do. And you guys are the same, I'm sure, just from what you're telling me and from what I know. I do sessions often. I do it as often as I can. It's hard to keep up with reviewing it. I do my best, but I feel like, sometimes because we don't control this, you may not have access to get the communications. So to go back to what Josh was saying before, when I instinctually feel like I need to turn on a box or I need to set up a DRV session, I'll do it. And then if I have stuff I should review, sometimes I'm like, yeah, but if I'm getting the vibe I should connect and do something, I collect it while you can. You know what I mean? It's like counting your money when you're still at the table kind of thing. If I'm still winning, that's why we love audio research, right? That's what I tell people all the time is if you go to investigate as a paranormal investigator, not just as a researcher, and you get touched or something happens or moves, like those experiences are real. If you felt that, if you experienced, that's real. I don't ever discount anybody's feelings or intuition. But in what we do, there's a preference towards what you call a PPO, a permanent paranormal object, when you can re-examine that over and over and over again. You can reassess it. I can send it to you. I can send it to you. I can send it to everyone. I mean, you could take that piece of audio. You can display it. You can share it with peers. You can discuss it. It's not, like a joke when you go, oh, you had to be there kind of thing. Well, they weren't there. So I think that's one of the reasons why I love this type of stuff so much, is because communication is something we all know how to do. And the ability to re-examine it, you can voice print it, you can look at it on a spectrograph, you can play with it to a certain degree, not to distort it or mangle it, but which I know sometimes people can do. But there's enhancement capabilities. You have options, and it's something you can keep going back to, which research, especially something of this nature, I think commands. It's not, you can't do it once and go, oh, I figured it out, or I can't figure it out.
All right. So yeah, Ben wants to step in the ring with you. He wants to challenge you to a fight.
Ben?
Yep. I'm just throwing it out there. He said you can fight, so I just added that.
I worked in the fight industry for I worked in the fight industry for a long time. I did boxing and mixed martial arts commentary. I was a less famous version of Joe Rogan.
Nice.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Those guys are a lot more scary than half of the spiritual interactions that
right
you'll have out in the field. Trust me on that one.
Right.
No, somebody else had a question for you. Roll one.
What do you guys think of Dr. William Roll? He mentioned he mentored Amy Allen. Oh, I'm not familiar with William Roll. I was looking at in the Amy Allen I met. She was at the Para Unity Expo in New Jersey a couple years ago, and she was very kind. She was very nice. Same voices come through. That yes, we have noticed that. Lourdes and I have heard our own voices come through, like Rob was mentioning before. This was on a ghost box actually, not that long ago. Austin Maynard, who's a good dude, very talented. He made a box, and I bought one from him, and it was a sweeping box, and it had band trimming and all that stuff. And I was running it, and I got a female voice that said, "Ron, it's Mom." And I was like, all I heard was Mom, and I was like, wait, Mom? And my mom passed at the end of January 2019.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's something you don't really ever get used to, but
I know.
So it's funny, actually. So I'll get on to something else about that in a second. I sent it to my dad, who's able to hear more of this stuff now, because I've sent him some stuff. It's funny because people with a musical background who listen to tones and stuff have, I think, a leg up with doing this stuff. But the one downside to it that people don't think about is if it's a musician for a long period of time, you also have degradation of hearing from a lot of music.
This guy.
Rob and I just talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a drummer and an audio engineer, and now I'm listening to very quiet sounds.
Yeah.
Wow. The course of my life.
He heard it and he said that sounded like her. Right. Send it to your sister. That sounded like her. I was like, all right.
Right. Go ahead. I apologize.
I was saying, I don't know. I can't prove. I don't know that it's her until we have video ITC merged with audio ITC to the point we're doing, Skype to the afterlife. I don't know.
Right.
It's encouraging. It's definitely encouraging that even that that image or that information can be repeated to you, no matter what it is. And it's not in front of you with your five senses in terms of being in the same room in the three-dimensional space that we're in. So that alone, I thrive on that a lot, even though we don't know what it is, it's still encouraging. And still encouraging that there's something, even if it's something being repeated back to us, even if it's an automated process. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. It's still encouraging to hear your mom's voice, communication in your mom's voice.
Yeah, I've gotten a couple things. I'd gotten something on direct radio one time where I used to live that tonality wise, I couldn't say it sounded like her as much as this one did. But the information that came through was very relevant to what I had asked about how she was doing versus her pre-passing condition. I'll tell you a really cool story from this past weekend on Saturday when we were doing the expo. I was running direct radio through the software and using the AI element, and I was running it through a sound bar that I bought, so the people in the room, front and back, whatever, we could hear it pretty clearly. And there was a gentleman asking questions on a walker. He was close to the front. He was really interested. And then he was getting ready to leave, and he says, all right, well, it was very nice, thank you. And he goes, if people tell me my wife Kimberly's around me, or my wife's around me, he goes, so, if she is, just tell her I said hi. And he goes to leave. And I said, well, wait, what was her name? So he said, Kimberly. I said, well, if you hang around for a minute, we'll see, we'll ask questions. Who knows? Maybe the name or something, And so I'm sitting in the chair in front of the thing, and there's people kind of like around me. We had the room fill up, empty out, whatever. It's like 20 people maybe. And then I heard underneath a little blip of synthesized sound, I heard a female voice. Now I've been doing this. This is like a decade, give or take, right? So it's always encouraging. It's always exciting. It never gets old, all that stuff. But I don't usually flip out. I heard a female say, "That's my husband." Very clear. And I got up out of the chair and I was like, what? And I walked out of the room. Like I needed to collect myself for a minute because I couldn't believe after what he just talked about that came through. So then I was like, let's see, can you give me a name? I said, ask Kimberly, can you give me a name? And I hear the same voice say Tom. So then I looked at the guy and went, sir, I don't even know you. Is your name Tom? Because we just heard Tom. And he goes, no, it's George. And then I did what we do when we're wrong. I went, hey, they're not all bullseyes. Thank you. Good night. But he goes, wait. He goes, wait. He goes, my deceased wife had a friend when she was alive who was a teacher in this school where the expo is. And his name is Tom.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
So I always say the governing two things behind whether or not something may or may not be spirit communication, at least for me, the two things are timing and relevance. And that one nailed both of them. And that wigged me out for like an hour or so. I was like.
And I think that's, when I hear that story, that's the encouragement or the excitement that I feel, is that we can't explain exactly what's going on, but at the same time, look at the timing and the synchronicity of that event. And so you feel that excitement going, there is something behind this. There's an intelligence or a purpose or a reason behind this. This isn't random. I don't think this is, I know a lot has to do with the stone tape theory, but I think a lot of this is intelligent and active and purposeful. Look at the timing of that. That's incredible. Yeah.
Timing and relevance rules out residual or even just any kind of a loop, so to speak. It's when you're getting something that's directly in the moment. I mean, the odds of that coming through on any device in the moment you ask for it is astronomical, in my opinion.
Yeah. And no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for you to react like that, your body, instinctively reacted with excitement. It wasn't manufactured. You didn't second guess anything. Or did you hear that? You just felt it and you knew, it was something that you couldn't control. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I know you can't use that in an evidentiary, court, if you will, as evidence that this exists. But I still find that reaction, especially because you say you don't flip out. You're used to this. You've been doing this for a decade, but that moment you felt that. I
wigged out big time. Anthony Simonelli from Secrets Club and then Lourdes Gonzalez, my girlfriend, both were like, because they do this with me all the time. And I think the part of it that really hit me was like, it was like what Bocce used to do when he had parents come in who had lost children at a young age. That was a moment of peace, tranquility, or closure, perhaps, or something for this guy, which I wasn't trying to do. So I'm not going to try. I'm not putting on the cape and coming out of the phone booth with the S on my shirt. It was no heroic thing. I was just trying to demonstrate the method, and we were getting communication. We had a couple people's names come out. I said, say the word expo. I said expo. There were 2 or 3 people who came in the room in the morning and never walked around the expo because we were getting stuff. They stayed in the room.
Right.
So this guy's moment was heartfelt. And it was one of the altruistic reasons that remind you what this also should and could be used for. And that blew me away. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
No,
it's incredible.
It's those types of moments that are just like, that's what keeps you coming back. It's like, playing golf. You hit that one shot. You might be the worst golf player. You hit that one shot, you're going to keep on going back. And, these type of moments are, when that does happen, I've actually gotten teary-eyed during our Saturday show a few times because of things like that. And when you're using a scanning radio, okay, so this is like the thing. So a lot of people use scanning radios, in my opinion, because they're looking for instant gratification, because there's so many false positives that can happen with using a scanning radio. But when you're using something like that, and you get that same type of response, where it's meaningful, the timing is just impeccable, um,
Mhm.
and everything just lines up. It's like, holy crap, then it makes it worthwhile using that device. Because a lot of times you're using a radio or whatever, any type of device you're using, and it could be okay. It said this, but is that relevant? Eh, you know. So it kind of has you like, yeah, it could be, but or the timing just isn't right on. Um,
Right.
so yeah, there's a lot of things where when you do have that that aha moment, it's like holy crap. But then other times there's like, it may not be. So, and
Yeah.
you'll be able to tell.
I have when we do our Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence podcast on Monday nights on KGRADB, I have Tony Rathman's quoting that a lot now too. Timing and relevance is just sweeping radio, direct radio. If I say what's in my hand and the word mouse comes out, the statistical probability
Right.
of that coming out. And the thing is that people go, well, ham radio, CB radio, baby monitor, 2 cups and a string. I'm not transmitting with a microphone.
Right.
So if there's a guy in a truck who's answering my question and naming the thing in my hands at the exact moment I'm asking for it, not only do I need to buy lottery tickets, that guy needs a career change because he's awesome.
Or there's a or he, broke into your house and put a microphone in your ceiling fan.
Exactly.
Right. Which
Exactly.
I don't want to think about, but yeah.
No. Timing and relevance is your two best friends to vet something. If I'm doing a session and I'm sitting here and something goes, yogurt, that very well could be one of the most clear and crisp spirit vocals ever. Maybe. But contextually, it's hard for me to put that on a pedestal with the quality of the audio that it matches because I don't have anything to it. Like I remember when the S box came out, right? I got it. Like I said, I'll try everything. We gotten stuff on it before, and then people go, what's really cool is it records the session internally, which is fantastic. But you know what? It doesn't record me.
Yeah, your
so
question.
When I go, what's in my hand, and it says glasses, all you have is glasses. And part of what makes this a dialogue versus just something coming out of a device is that connection, reciprocation of conversation. And you lose that. You lose the duality of reality because I'm not getting recorded with what I asked. And I think that's huge. That it didn't say glasses tomorrow. It said it when I asked for it.
So perfect. That makes total sense. Now, when I was doing my experiment one day, because when I do my experiments, my live experiments, it's random. I'm like, hey Josh, I'm going to start a test session in about 15 minutes. So let's say 1:15, I'm going to start it. I go on there, I start it up. Random people will start coming in, and I just say, look, I'm going to let this run, and I walk away. Yes, I'm recording it. The broadcast software is recording it, but I'm not going to be there. So I just literally walk away. And so one day we're doing it, and there's a few people in there, and Josh's name was called. He was watching. There was Deb's name was called. She was watching. Um, there was somebody else. There was like 3 other people that each of the people that were watching got their names called. Somebody asked a question. He said, "Since you're not here, I can't ask a question, so I'm just going to think it." And he said, "Okay, I'm thinking about a question." He got the response, and he's like, "Holy crap!
Wow.
It just answered my question." Somebody else asked one verbally. They said, "Okay, here's a question." They typed it out. She got a response, and so later, somebody came through and commented, "Oh, this is all fake." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I had people randomly come in, their names got called. Immediately after, literally 5 seconds after, 10 seconds after, it was relevant. their question was answered, and they were like, "Holy crap!" So to pull off a faked session like that, we would have. It would take so much. The timing would have to be right on for that person's name to be called. Their
Yep.
question, I would have to have that scripted. Okay, at 1:45 and 30 seconds, you're going to ask that question. 3 seconds later, it's going to answer it.
But
You know,
you also have to calculate for bandwidth latency across the world. So that's that's going to take you a few hours to calculate that entire pathway. Let's not forget about that.
right? So
And how about motivation too? Like, what's in it for that? Who's making cash and getting a viral video? There's nobody's ever some of the best evidence ever collected, but people who never came forward with it. It's just
Right. Exactly. Oh yeah, we don't even market our show, Ron. I mean, literally, we're so busy with everything else. I mean, it's just like it's pretty much word of mouth. So if you hear about what we're doing, great. If you don't, I guess that's just life.
Yeah, and we're making the money. I mean, look at how many followers we have. We have 1,000 followers. We're raking in the cash.
In the red every month.
Yeah, we're in the red every month. So yeah, there's no motivation there. So
that's fine. I love the people who I try not to speak with certainty beyond what I can substantiate.
Mhm.
So even if I thought you might not be legit, if I can't substantiate it, I wouldn't be saying it, because it's just blind hate. It's like you don't have that. That's my problem with the whole skeptical. Like, skepticism is good. You have to have discernment. Skepticism is good. The people who say there's
no, go ahead.
I would say the people who say that they're skeptics but try to debunk everything and don't believe anything at all is paranormal. They're not skeptics. They're believers. If you think everything's paranormal, you're a believer. If you think everything's not, you're also a believer. It's just a different paradigm. The skeptic looks for absolution and truth. They use the term because societally and sociologically, it sounds more educated, well-to-do, well-spoken. I'm a researcher. I'm the skeptic. But if you're the skeptic, you're not anti-everything. Skepticism is different. And they go, oh, science, blah, blah, blah. Science is a method of inquiry. Science is not an ideology. So if you can't fit it into science yet or ever, it doesn't mean that it's not authentic. It doesn't mean it's not genuine. It just means we maybe can't quantify or qualify or categorize what it is or how it is or whatever. That's scientism. That's not science. Right. And I think that's important, because people will say, oh, science, but that's not, if you're not open, that's science. That's not science. Science looks for the truth. A method being scientific has to be falsifiable by definition, or it's not a scientific method.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, and that's the big thing, because I mean, when I say I'm a skeptic, because I haven't tried it, so it's like what you were saying earlier. You have to try different things for you to figure out to see if it's if it's going to work for you or not. And I'm just like, when I go into something, yeah, I'm a little skeptical, because is this legend? Is this truth? Is it facts? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I need to figure this out. If you're an investigator and you're brought in somewhere, hey, I need to figure out if this place is haunted or not. Okay, what's the basis of it being haunted? Well, there's just a lot of rumors. Okay, well, then I'm really skeptical on going there and checking it out, because it's all hearsay. Is there any proof or any history of these events happening? No. Okay, well then, yeah, I'm really skeptical that this place is actually haunted. Now we're gonna have to try to figure it out and do some research. And it could take tens of, could take hundreds of hours. You can't just go in there one night for 8 hours. Okay, no, yeah, I didn't get anything. It could take, because on that night, depending on the circumstances, it's like spirits are where people at one point, so they might see you as an intruder. They're going to hide, and then you go back, they start getting comfortable with you go back again. Hey, then wait a minute, I just got a voice. You go back another time. wow, I just got touched. Wow, I just got this. Wow, I just got that.
Mhm.
Now the evidence just starts coming in because they're getting used to you being there. And
Yeah,
that's what we found
you
doing that.
said you said two things that I think are important for people if they're paying attention and taking notes here to notice. One, what you did, your actions, that was the embodiment of an actual skeptic. You were unsure, you were skeptical, you had doubts, but you took the steps, you did the work to find out. You didn't just say, as the people who call themselves skeptics, I don't believe in that stuff, it's BS because it could have been this. It's probably that. That's the difference. That's a believer in a different paradigm. What you did was the use of skepticism. That's how you're supposed to do it. The other thing I think that is huge too is that you guys know this is better than I do, I'm sure. When you do vocal stuff, EVP, ITC, when you do stuff that way, right? It's not enough of a criteria, in my opinion, to deem a location haunted.
Mm-mm.
Predicated purely on the fact that you got anomalous vocals because we can get them anywhere.
Yep.
Right.
But when you
Yep.
named other things in your description just now, that's an aggregation of data. That's a corroboration of evidence. That's why people buy all the different whiz bang toys that measure this and blip this and lights do that. That's what that's for. Is to try to create something that is a collection of data to aggregate and then to corroborate what you've got. So you pointed out two things that were so important in the thought process of doing research, field or a home, that I wanted to kind of to jump on because I think that those are so important. I think that they get left out for some people.
Yeah. I think people are shocked, Ron, to find out I've only been on one paranormal investigation and that all of my evidence, both boring and incredibly amazing, has been in my studio or at my place of work in maybe 2 or 3 locations. So you can get incredible evidence anywhere. So yeah, going to a paranormal location and capturing a few EVPs doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it can, but at the same time, to come to conclusive, to call evidence conclusive and leave after a few hours and say, well, these are the voices here, this is what's going on, knowing you can get this information anywhere. You can go after the investigation, you can go to the McDonald's bathroom and run the EVP in there and get something. So
right.
It does point out the fact that this intelligent communication is anywhere at any time. It's not place determinate, time determinate.
Yeah, and if time space is limited, or if it exists in the same way we have it in the spirit realm or whatever it is, then they, who's to say that stuck at that location? You could be transient. Maybe you go to Trans Allegheny, you get somebody that's coming through who's never even been there before themselves. Like, hey, it's my first time too.
Right.
Yeah. But that's one of the other reasons why, I always say, I mean, during investigations, I always frown upon using the ghost box. I always have. Josh knows my stance on that.
Mhm.
There's reasons why, because there's already chaos there. Why are you going to bring in more chaos into the environment? This is just me. If you want to run the ghost box, like let's say we do an investigation for several hours. Okay, everybody's wrapping up. Let's take, a few people. We're wrapping up. Let's do a ghost box session toward, for the last hour. Let's just see what we get. And then go ahead and run it. But at least you try to gather more evidence than just going in. All right, we're just doing ghost box sessions during this investigation. Wait, why? You can do that anywhere.
Right. No,
Like
that's true. And controlling your environment, like you were saying before, is a big part of it too. That's why the for us, if we can get like a small group, people that we know, people who have integrity of process, then we'll do stuff like that or whatever we feel like doing at a given location. But yeah, if it's like a public event or like that, then I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, man, this has been a fun night. Yeah, I know it's getting a little late. But yeah, we just wanted to say thank you, Ron, for coming on.
Oh,
We'd
thank you for
love to
having
have you on again. I know that you had some evidence that, but we touched on so much stuff that, yeah, we'll have to do an evidence reveal. We'll have Ron on again. And like I said, we're gonna probably do some more. I want to do some live sessions. Um, within a group environment. So if anybody's interested in that, you can email me at theparawakening@gmail.com. And I'm just gathering kind of like a bunch of emails on people that would be interested in doing something like that. And but we'll be working on that probably next month sometime. We'll probably launch it maybe towards the first of the year, beginning of the year, first quarter. Right, Josh?
Uh, yeah. So much of this I'm hearing for the first time, but yes, I'm on board with everything. What? Yeah.
I mean,
Ron,
it'll just give us some time.
Ron, before I wanted you to have a chance to plug your podcast and
Yes.
make sure that everyone can follow you, because if they like our show, they're going to love you even more. So I'm kind of sending our audience your way, but I want them to learn from you. So please plug your social media and everything.
You guys are setting a great example of the fact that you can be dedicated and you can be brilliant at what you do and still have a level of humility and openness. And I admire that from both of you. It's
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a guy in Jersey with a boombox who's listening to static for hours. How does that sound like bragging, huh? I listen to static for hours. What do you do?
Yeah. No, you know what? We joke, but Rob and I look up to you in your research, and we've learned so much from what you're doing. I mean,
that's huge. You guys are in my opinion are brilliant in the stuff that you do, and to be able to build stuff the way you do, and your understanding of audio. You guys are. I appreciate it. It almost makes me speechless. I'm like, I don't know. You know what? I don't think the community's great because I'm in it. I think I'm in it because of the community's great in what we do. That's how I feel. And you know what? I'll end this with my babbling. I'll end it with
and plug your
show. Stuff. The show is Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. It's on usually on Facebook and YouTube under KGRADB. KGRA is the network that does it. It's myself and Lourdes Gonzalez, Tony and Shree Rathman out in Arizona, Chris Allgood and Audra Keeler in North Carolina. We're three couples, and we bring folks on who do paranormal investigations in teams to share their evidence, tell how they got it, what they used. I love that because it's both exciting and humbling to see other people and what they get, learn how they get it, discuss it. It's fascinating just to and we learn from other people and just to see what they do and locations that we've never been. And then of course, like I mentioned, I'll be speaking on ITC Friday night, this coming Friday in a day, at the UFO and Paranormal Museum in Pine Bush, New York, which I'm thrilled that they asked me to do this. And I'll be finished. I'm technically pretty much finished with my first book, which is a little bit of my foray into doing anything paranormal, and then it starts slanting towards the ITC side where I ended up. And I dedicated a chapter just so people know that I'm genuine in what I'm saying when I'm praising you guys, but I mean it. I have a chapter dedicated to a handful of folks like you two, who are both included, to give advice or direction to people who are aspiring ITC operators, or if they want to be builders or whatever, because I think it's important for people to, if they look at me and think I know what I'm doing or I'm good at what I'm doing, it's important for them to know that I'm not the only one, and that I'm where I am or know what I do because of other people who put the work in, who I paid attention to. So you guys are two of the people that I considered when I did this that I feel are best in class, who are doing anything with ITC. And so the book will be out hopefully soon, and you guys both have a written and photo representation in a chapter that's dedicated to people I thought do great work. So when that's out, we'll plug it.
Truly humbled. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll get you back on the show. I know this will be the last show, maybe for a couple of weeks until I get the move done and get the new studio set up. So it is what it is, but it'll be cool.
Definitely. Yeah, we'll get back together once everything's restructured.
Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity that you guys having me on. I really was looking forward to doing this tonight. And just if it makes you feel better, I'm up this late, even if I'm not on a podcast.
Okay, we're night owls too, but we weren't sure.
Yeah, we're just
Rob's swatting mosquitoes over there. So no, but
and I'm getting eaten alive. There's like 5 mosquitoes flying around.
But thank you again for staying up and doing the show with us. And yeah, we'll be in contact. And I look forward to getting your book and seeing you on the shows. And I expect, I know a lot of our audience will be watching as well, because we only covered the tip of the iceberg. And I know how much more you have to share in terms of your research and your evidence. So I look forward to that.
Exactly.
No, I appreciate it very much. It was an honor, like I said, that you guys asked me to be here. And then when we should remote you guys into a direct radio session when we do them here too. I think
it'll be fun.
I think it would be good energy.
I think we should do a dual session. I'll have my stuff running here. You have your stuff running in there. See what comes through. It'll be fun.
Oh, that would be really fun. Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So there you go. We might have a show like that, and we'll just broadcast it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, good night, everybody, and thanks again. And get some rest. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thanks.